Hi, my name is Carol York, and I am here to discuss the two articles and the video we watched this week for class. The first article was Strengthening the Connection Between Differentiated Instruction Strategies and Teaching Personal and Social Responsibility, Challenges, Strategies, and Future Pathways. First of all, TPSR stands for Teaching Personal and Social Responsibility, and it talked about having 5 levels. One, respect for the rights and feelings of others. Two, participation and effort. Three, self direction. Four, leadership and caring. And five, transferring of those skills. Um, a positive teacher student relationship is a key to empowering this and the fostering that self reflection and helping students transfer these lifelong skills. As teachers, we have to recognize the differences in our students, their strengths and their weaknesses, and challenges that may occur for them. And we need to give them opportunity to transfer these learning opportunities to other areas. The one thing I thought was a very interesting was they talked about how, even though they call them levels, it really should be more of a skill set because some students may have self direction, which is level 3, but not have the respect for rights and feelings of others. So I think it more of a 5 skill sets. A student could be really strong in one skill set, could be weak in another skill set, needs to work on one, is grasping one. And just because they have 2 doesn't mean they have the first one. And to follow and to implement TPSR, we have to identify the student's individual profile, what they're strong at, what they're weak at, tailor instruction according to student needs, and implement matching teaching strategies. And they talked about assessment tools such as the TARE, TARE, the Tool for Assessing Responsibility-Based Education. And it had 2 areas. One is assessing the teacher, and 2 is assessing the children, and helping them focus in more on what needs to be taught and learned by the students. Some keys that I took away from this article was teachers could select personal and social skills deemed unrelevant for a student's developmental process. Like I said, students may have a level 2, but not the level 1. And it should really focus in on those levels and set up situations where students, maybe they need to learn empathy, but they're not very strong in self-direction. Pairing up students that could help the student with the self-direction, but the other kid could help with the empathy part of it. Another key was an assessment protocols based on the TARE that might help PE teachers and programs understand. Using a tool like that could help teachers understand each participant's developmental needs and situation within the level of responsibility. Appropriate responsibility-based teaching strategies to address individual student needs and abilities. And that the third key would be information provided by that TARE profile could be used to customize professional development opportunities for teachers, for PE teachers, and to improve their teaching of TPSR. Understanding a teacher's strengths and weaknesses could really help formalize formal and informal teacher education initiatives and provide support for those teachers to attain better student outcomes. The second article was Brain-Based Teaching, Differentiation in Teaching, Learning, and Motor Skills. I found this one really fascinating. I really enjoyed it. There are differences between male and female brains, and that doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It doesn't mean one's higher level, one's lower level. It just means there's differences. Boys tend to be more right-brained, while girls often have a balance between the left and the right brain. Um, and there are categories that are the most relevant for the educators to consider are the biological differences that we can identify where some of the genetic differences occur, learning differences that demonstrate how these differences play out in the learning environment, and motor skill differences and how they affect learning in a physical activity setting. The 3 to 5 keys that I took away, one was in the biological differences. I knew there were some differences, but I didn't realize the extent of them. And the male brain matures in a different order than the female, and time and rate, particular areas that affect language, spatial memory, and motor skills. Many of the differences become evident during early childhood education, though I found it really interesting that the difference between a 7-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy would be substantially different than, say, a 7-year-old girl and a 9-year-old girl. Some of that's due to genetics and some of that's due to culture, but it's often due to socialization, because boys have more active play with parents at a younger age. They play pitch, they catch, hide and seek, kickball with neighbors. The brains in the boys and girls seem to develop differently and have different needs, and so there's a strong case for differentiation in the physical education environment. Interestingly enough, the male brain is 10 to 15% heavier and larger, but the parietal lobe located in the cerebral cortex is larger, and that's the section in the brain that's involved with spatial and mathematical reasoning. And that area includes targeting spatial memory, which matures about 4 years earlier in males. The female brain is smaller and lighter, with 15% more blood flowing, which enhances communication between the hemispheres for more accessible learning. Learning differences I thought was very interesting. Education in general is geared to favor left brain or detail-oriented learners, which if males are more right-brained, we're leaving them out. Physical educators may be teaching the correct way to throw by laying out the details involved, but fail to present the big picture of why that skill isn't so important, so that right brain learner may be left behind or confused. Boys often begin early grades with learned helplessness and inferiority complex. In physical education class, where integrated teaching techniques are used, girls find it easier to relate to the academic concepts that are being applied. The left side of the brain, which is responsible for language development and verbal written abilities, develops faster in girls, so girls outperform boys in language and related physical activities. The third key, behavior. I thought this one was really interesting. The prefrontal cortex is, our CEO center of the brain that helps organize, analyze, strategize, synthesize information. And this area of slower development, the male explains that impulsive behavior of boys where they act without thinking. They'll jump off the mat. They'll jump off that high. Think of my grandson. He was on his bed that was elevated and had a railing, and he looked at me, and I went, and he jumped, and the look afterwards was like, oh my gosh, that was way higher than I thought. And, he didn't do it again. He didn't get hurt, but it was kind of funny because he just said, well, let's jump. Also, serotonin is also produced here, which helps us to feel good, slow down, and think about that cause and effect. And this area in boys develops more slowly than girls, and that maturity gap, especially between the ages of 10 and 20 years of age, that's where we really see a notable difference in the genders. Females are more cautious, often often underestimate their abilities, unlike the boys who say, oh, I can do that, no problem, and then realize, oh, maybe that wasn't such a good decision. They don't have the confidence that they can participate and be successful on the same level in a game where the boys are playing. They appear to be more mature because the adolescent serotonin levels are higher, and the adolescent growth spurt kicks in about 2 years earlier for females than the males. And those female hormones mature earlier than male hormones, so girls tend to underestimate their abilities and think about their consequences of their actions. The other one I thought was very interesting was males have 35% less hearing than girls due to the length of the cochlea, which receives sounds in the ear. This hearing issue is an enormous learning difference that physical educators need to be aware of because the development of the ear canal happens more slowly in males, and females are better at listening and memory skills because of the stronger neural connectors in the temporal lobes. Females are more likely to get the instruction the first time and remember what needs to be done to be successful. The male brain attends to lessons taught using symbols, facts, graphs, pictures, objects moving through space, rather than the lessons taught through monotony of words. In the gym, there needs to be visuals, a variety of equipment, and demonstrations rather than a lot of words. And the corpus callosum in the female, which sends signals between the two halves of the brain, is 26% larger than males, and so they're better equipped to multitask. They write, color, and cut faster than males. Okay, the fourth key was the motor skills. There's a big correlation between math and reading success and motor skills. Kids lacking in motor skills tend to lack in math and reading success. Kids who have good motor skills do well in math and reading. The video was a high impact instructional strategies for physical education. Talked about what is high impact. It creates proper learning environment, helps students understand the subject, and helps students apply what they have learned. It takes planning. You have to have good instruction. It has to have community building and concept-based constructivism. Some keys that I took away from this is to use real-world problems. For example, peer pressure. The example they used there was how are we teaching kids to say no? How are we teaching kids to create boundaries? And those are things that kids will actually have to experience. The second key was building the community to work together to solve issues and collaborate in issues that students face. And the third key was students need to do some individual, they need to do some small work group, and then maybe have a presentation where the class would evaluate and they do some self-evaluation. Some instructional strategies that I came away with is they talked about the boys being a little less lower in language development, pairing the boys and girls together in partner groups to enhance that language development. Don't let the boys just get away with shrugs and grunts, but make them actually talk about it, and that will help their language development. On the boys' side of learning, they don't like a lot of talking. Teachers will put them to sleep. So in PE, they need to be engaged and keep moving. We need to use visuals, images, step trackers, other things they can learn by seeing, giving them tasks, challenging the boys. They love a good competition. They don't hear as well, so make sure they're sitting more up front, and using small manipulatives to help with the small fine motor skills. And the third one would be for, on the flip side, girls. They need to compete in small groups and with skills, and to play sports and to participate in that, building games that can help that spatial awareness. Giving them opportunities for math and science to integrate that into the learning. Girls learn better when they're facing each other or facing the teacher, so be aware of that when I'm creating a seating chart. Not protecting girls from those activities where they might get dirty, might get hurt, skin their knees. Let them and encourage them to do those activities. Encourage safe risk activities that provide opportunities for girls to take calculated risks and be successful. Maybe modify the games to allow them to learn the skills on their own time frame. Girls will, because of communication, they'll focus on the writing and the whiteboard at the gym. So make sure you have the written instructions, visual for the boys, written for the girls. Girls don't like those loud, sharp tones, so they prefer the softer voices. And having them work together to accomplish a task or a modified game, maybe change the rules, eliminate that competition. They just want to play to have fun. Um, and so that's how I would apply some of these things to my teaching.